Source number 1. You have found an article that describes the characteristics of Vikings. The Vikings, raiders and explorers. To many people, they were the Norsemen, the men from the north. To those who had reason to fear them, they were the sea wolves. This image of the Vikings as ruthless raiders has been passed on for centuries. The Vikings were also explorers and the first Europeans to reach America. Around 500 years before Christopher Columbus set sail, the Vikings had already landed in the New World. They even built a settlement. The Vikings lived in an area that includes the present-day countries of Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. In those days, the Vikings weren't known as Vikings. They weren't given that name until long after the Viking Age had ended. The Scandinavian climate was typical of northern regions. It had long winters and short summers. This made farming a challenge. Most of the people lived along the coastline, where the warmer ocean waters created a milder winter. The Vikings used the sea as a means of transportation and a source of food. Most Vikings, however, were farmers who spent their time working the land. From the beginning, Scandinavia's climate and geography were key factors that led the Vikings to explore new lands. Food, in fact, was the biggest motivator. The Vikings did the best they could with what they had. They ate seafood and raised dairy cattle, pigs, chickens, ducks, and sheep. However, the long, cold winters, the short growing season, and a lack of good farmland made it difficult to provide enough food for everyone. The farmers' main crops were only onions, leeks, peas, and cabbage. To make matters worse, the Viking population was growing, and so there were more mouths to feed. Finding new lands on which to settle some of their people was one way to solve this problem. The Vikings raided anywhere their ships could reach. They took what they wanted and often killed the rightful owners. Viking warriors were fierce fighters, especially if there was something to be gained, such as control of a land rich with resources. For almost 300 years, Viking warships and raiders seemed to be nearly everywhere. The Vikings probably first raided along the coast of Europe. Then they headed inland into Germany, France, and Spain. They even sailed along the Mediterranean Sea into Italy. Their ships also crossed the North Sea and headed west to the British Isles. They stormed England, Scotland, Ireland, and the small islands clustered around them. They even reached farther eastward into what is now Russia. Some Vikings went into what is now Turkey. Some made it to what is now Iraq. Though their voyages usually involved raids, the Vikings also visited trading centers. When they saw something they wanted, they would trade their products. These included fur, lumber, and handcrafted objects. The Vikings also traded goods they had stolen in various raids. Sometimes they paid for the goods they wanted with silver coins. Some of what they bought were necessities they did not have at home. They also bought luxury goods such as silver, glassware, pottery, silk, and spices. The arrival of the Vikings in North America seemed to have resulted from a series of accidental discoveries made by Viking adventurers. Step by step, these smaller discoveries brought the Vikings closer and closer to their biggest discovery of all, the continent of North America. The Vikings' first step toward North America was their discovery and settling of Iceland. Iceland would become the jumping-off point for Greenland. Greenland would become the stepping stone to North America.